In this video, we're going to break down why your state is the most important factor to consider when it comes to achieving your dream body, and why, let me remove myself, willpower is the last tool you should ever use. Sounds rather ambiguous, but let's actually understand what we're going to get into in this video. So what we're going to cover is why discipline is not the issue, what your nervous system is actually doing when you make food decisions, the physiology of stress, and why fat loss stops because of this. We're going to go a little bit deeper into a little bit of law of attraction style talk. We're going to go into law of vibration, the same action from two states which produces two results, and the first decision principle, and how to shift your state before you act and actually achieve your dream body. I've worked with over 1,000 people. I have done the old approach. I have changed diets. I have changed training programs until I realized none of this made a fucking difference until we changed someone's inner world. So now what I do is I remove the mental and subconscious blocks which is stopping you from achieving your dream body. So the same reasons why you seemingly can't get there, the reasons why despite what you do with your diet, you make some progress and you go straight back to where you are. I dived into this. I looked at the science. I looked at the neuroscience, the psychology, everything, and decided that physical change was a byproduct of mental change. And when you don't get the psychological mental change, even the spiritual change, your body will not change with it. So let's dive into it. The problem, every client who cannot stick to a diet is not failing at that because of discipline. But what they're actually trying to do is change the behavior from the wrong internal state. And your entire life, you've been taught that motivation just comes from action. You know, you're just like, start, just go. But what if the action you take is entirely determined by the state you're already in, and no matter discipline can override that? And I'm just going to remove myself away. We've been doing this for wrong our entire lives. We believe that when we take action, that it's more important than our identity, which is more important than our state. But the reason why you can't make everlasting change is actually because you're not operating from state first, then identity, and then action. So what actually is this? Let's go into the neuroscience. So you've got two brains and two different areas of your brain which make different decisions. You've got the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. This is going to sound very, very complex, but I'm going to make this simple. The limbic system is just your emotional brain. The prefrontal cortex is just your planning brain. So the limbic system is automatic, right? It fires 200 to 400 milliseconds before you actually think. It governs survival, threat, and safety. It controls emotional memory and cravings, decides how safe the environment feels. Oh, what's that word right there? Connects directly to the hypothalamic pituitary stress axis and cannot be overridden by logic alone. This is like your fight or flight state. This is the sympathetic part of the brain. This is automatic. You can't control this. And your prefrontal cortex is where willpower, logic, and goals live. When you're thinking out of this space, you can handle long-term thinking and the consequence of your actions. You can become responsible for food decisions. But this does become suppressed under stress, fear, or threat. And this is where the limbic system takes in and goes fully offline when the limbic system fires hard. You need safety in order to work from the prefrontal cortex. So what is actually happening to you when you're getting this clash of brain signals? So when your nervous system is running in the sympathetic state, which is that fight or flight response, this is actually what's going on. And most of the time you're running in this fight or flight response because you're stressed, because you're overthinking all the time, because you cannot control your emotions. And what's actually happening physiologically here is your cortisol stays elevated. Cortisol is your stress hormone. This stays constantly elevated. Elevated levels of cortisol increase fat storage, particularly that fat around your midsection. So that fat, which everyone's always struggling to lose, that sits around your abs, which you're so desperately trying to see, is never going to be lost through punishing yourself through diet, because that's visceral. That is fat that your body is holding onto to protect your vital organs. Insulin resistance increases, so chronic stress causes your insulin to become resistant, which means your cells stop absorbing the glucose efficiently, your blood sugars stay high, and your body actually starts preferentially storing every bit of food that goes into your body rather than burning it. A knock-on effect of this is that your ghrelin, so the hormone that makes you feel hungry, elevates, right? Because when your stress goes up, your ghrelin goes up. And that's not because you actually need those caloric needs. It means your body can't access the food in which you're giving it. your leptin goes down. So you get leptin resistance. So the hormone that tells you that you're full doesn't signal because you are stressed once again. And after all that, let me move out of the way, your metabolism slows down. So your body starts to prioritize survival over performance. So the way in which I want you to start viewing body fat is it's not excess calories. It's stored energy because your body is under threat that doesn't think it's going to get it. So when you're always under stress, your body's doing a fantastic job of actually providing energy for you at a later date. Like your body's not working against you. It's actually trying to serve you. You're just in the wrong mental headspace and you can't control your nervous system. So what does this actually look like? And this is just a conversation I was having with one of my clients who started with me fairly recently. And it looks like this. So your body is in fight or flight a lot of the time. You don't realize it. So a lot of the time, a lot of you might do something called the psychological sighs where you're working, you go, like that's actually your body trying to regulate itself. And it tells us that your nervous system is running in this fight or flight state. And in that state, every behavior you do, your body interprets that as part of threat. And this is where the issue comes in because the action is not the problem. You're actually doing a lot of things right? You're trying to follow a strict diet. You're moving more, you're going to the gym, but because you're doing it in a chronically dysregulated state, when I say dysregulated state, meaning where your nervous system is not settled, you're in the sympathetic state, you're doing these actions in the state in which your body's in fight or flight, so they get flagged as not good for the body. And that's why a lot of you guys can't actually do the things in which you want to do because your body subconsciously thinks that they're fucking threat. How crazy is that? How crazy is it that you have tricked your body into believing that eating healthy is punishment? And that's why you struggle so much to do it, because you punish your body and do these things in a stressed state and it can never accept them as normal. You've got the pendulum effect. And this is another thing. So the harder you go against what your body needs in this energetic state, the harder it swings back. Restriction from stress always causes a stronger pendulum return. The binge is not a weakness, it's physics. So what happens is we're like, I need to punish my body into submission. And imagine a pendulum. The more you punish it, the more the pendulum swings to the left. It swings to the left, it swings to the left, and then it swings back the other way. It goes, I can't really do this with my hands. It goes, whoop, whoop, and on the other side, it looks like binging. It looks like failing to go to the gym for months at a time. It looks like majorly falling off track, losing all that motivation because you pushed it so hard by not managing your state in the first place. Let's go into the law of vibration. So let's go into metaphysics. And when I'm talking metaphysics, I'm quite literally just talking about things like law of attraction and energetic exchanges. And without going too woo-woo on you, I want you to understand that everything is energy. Everything moves in energy. We are energy. The whole universe is constructed by energy. And your emotional state, which I want to go back to at the very start, which is the whole point of this video, will determine the outcomes of the actions in which you take. And I've seen this in my experience. Two people, they can follow the same diet, same food, same training, same calorie deficit, which everyone's fucking obsessed with, and the one doing it from a energetic state of punishment will always get a worse result. It sounds crazy, but I had a guy last year who I worked with, and for 3 months he didn't lose any weight. And I was like, I'm following this diet to a T. I'm like, right, well, what's going on? We looked at his emotional state. We looked at where he was doing these actions out of, and he viewed the process as punishment. When we reframed this and really broke that subconscious block, which was, I'm doing this out of punishment, so I'm doing this to serve and nourish my body. And then he understood that this process was actually one to make him better and not just damage himself and punish himself for the work in which he'd done. He lost 11 kilos in 3 months. Same diet, same training, same supplements, all the same shit. But in 3 months, he didn't lose anything. And then another 3 months, he lost 24 pounds. Crazy, okay? And I just want you to think about this as like a visual example of this. So you can apologize. And we've all done this, so this is amazing to visualize. You can apologize from two places. You can apologize from anger and apologize from love. And we've all done this maybe to a partner, a friend, whatever. When you apologize from anger, you can say the same words, but the energy behind it is full of resentment and frustration. The other person feels that, and the outcome suffers every time. So when you apologize to someone, but it's coming from an angry place, you might go, I'm really sorry, I hurt your feelings, I didn't mean to. When you apologize from love, how would that sound like? It would go, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I want to move past this. They're the same words, right? But the energy from doing it out of love is acceptance and genuine care. And because the other person feels that, it's a completely different outcome. And your body reads intent the same way. So when you're following a process in order to get a change from your body, if you're doing it out of resentment, you're doing it out of shame, you're doing it out of guilt, you're like, I'm so guilty for doing this, or I'm so ashamed of myself for being fat, you're not going to get the result in which you're looking for because those energies channels are lower. And there is actually a way of measuring this. And we actually have something called the consciousness chart. And basically the different energies from different emotion have a different outcome. So the state you act from, again, going back to that word state. State is like your frequency, your mood, the energy which you're in. It determines the quality of the action downstream because you can do the same behavior, but you're operating from a different frequency, so you get a different result. Different frequency is just a different emotional channel. And you're going to see here that the emotions in which you're doing the behavior from have completely different energy levels. So shame and guilt are the lowest ones. So whenever you're feeling ashamed of something and guilty of something, you might say the words, I've ruined it now. I need to punish myself. I need to restrict myself a little bit further. I need to go and do an hour of cardio because I fucking ate that last night. That has got the lowest energetic exchange. And just like this bit at the bottom says, most behavioral change attempts start at the bottom of this scale, and this is why it never sticks. So when you're saying, I just need to lose the weight because I'm embarrassed of myself, I look horrible, and I am ashamed of what I look like, it's the lowest energy scale. And that's why these results never stick. And as you move down the channel, your results change depending on the emotion in which you do it out of. So when you do something out of fear or anxiety, I have to do this or something bad will happen, you get more of a result than doing it out of shame and guilt, but it's not as much as it would be from doing it from a higher state. Anger is actually higher than both of those emotions, believe it or not. So when you're doing something out of anger, you're doing this to prove that you can actually do it. So a lot of people do a lot of things out of anger. And that's actually more productive than doing it out of fear, anxiety, and shame and guilt. And then you've got neutrality. So you understand what you need to do to where you want to get to. You're not doing this out of a passively aggressive, fear, anxiety, no shame. You're just like, I need to do this thing. Okay? Acceptance is, this is just what I do now, so you're accepting that this is just part of you, and you're accepting yourself and accepting that this is going to bring great things into your life, or you can do it out of love and joy. So this is when you genuinely want it for yourself. So you go to gym because you want to, and this is a really good example. And I want you to think about eating clean and eating a healthy diet. Someone does it and eats clean because they feel like they need to. They feel like because they are so horrible, they are so fat and so disgusting, which is a completely fictitious conclusion they've arrived at in their head, they eat a clean diet because they need to punish themselves and restrict themselves from anything bad because they don't think they're worth it. Somebody who operates out of fear of anxiety feels like they have to eat a clean diet, otherwise something bad's going to happen. They feel bad about themselves, they feel like they're going to gain all the weight in the world, and it comes out of fear. Somebody who's like, I'm going to eat this clean, healthy meals for the fucking 3 months, 6 months, whatever it is doing it out of anger, and they're just doing it to basically prove that they can do it. Doing it out of neutrality is going, okay, I know that I need to eat this clean meal in order to get what I want. Acceptance is going, I just like to eat healthy and clean. And love and joy is going, I genuinely want to eat healthy and clean because I know that this is good for me. And every single person along this chart can do the exact same thing, but it's going to cause a different result, and it's going to cause behaviors that don't stick and behaviors that do stick. And even visually look at this. If you're doing something out of guilt, you're basically labeling that behavior as punishment. Your nervous system is going to interpret that as punishment. If you're going to go to the gym after a heavy night out because you need to punish yourself, because you're like, I drank too much last night, I need to go sweat an hour out on the cardio machine, you're going to get to a point where your body goes, I really don't want to do that. It's going to reject it at all costs, and that's why you fall off. But if you get someone on the polar end of the spectrum who did the same as you, went on a night out, they got drunk, they had a fair bit to drink, they had a good time, and the next day, they're like, I really want to do this for myself because I know how much better it's going to make me feel. They're doing it out of a completely different emotional state, and they're more likely to stick to that behavior. So how you do something and your opinion and interpretation and the state in which you do the behavior out of has a completely different outcome for the result in which you get from that activity. And not only that, your longevity of sticking to it. And that's what we need to understand. That's what everybody forgets. It's not punishing yourself. It's doing it because you love yourself. You know, it's eating a certain way because you're like, I deserve this. I deserve more. And when you think like that, you're putting your self-worth up. When you put your self-worth up, guess what? That dream body, which you put on a pedestal, you truly believe that you're worth having that now. And if you're going, no, I'm not worth it. I need to do this to attain some self-worth. Self-worth's down here. That body that you want is up here. You're operating off the wrong frequencies. You're a million miles off, so you're never going to attract this because you can only attract what you believe you're worth. And when the state shifts, so this is the really, really crazy part about this entire process, and this is why state is everything. State is fucking everything in life. When the state shifts, everything feels effortless. And this is just an example of one of the amazing women that I work with. And a conversation that we had the other day, which I had to pull out and drop into this, is we shifted our state entirely. You know, and this has been a large part of our conversation. This has been something which I work on with every single person that comes to me, is it's working on that state first. Because once we changed her state, she stepped into the version of herself of higher worth, of acceptance, and even love, and love and true acceptance and neutrality at points, but true love and joy. You know, we're getting an amazing result. And what happened was she actually didn't track food. She stopped obsessing over food, and she started focusing on feeling good, because that's what loving herself and increasing her self-worth does. And guess what happened as a result of that? Her skin cleared up. So her skin issue, which had been bothering her for years, that she'd taken the pill for, done multiple courses of these, of what they call the dermatologist treatments, you know, to fix the skin, her skin cleared up in weeks because her cortisol went down, because cortisol drives inflammation. And as a response, the skin change was actually the nervous system cooling down and finally accepting herself. Her energy improves. So when the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, is no longer chronically stimulated, it's that constant like fight or flight state, the body can actually relocate resources to cellular repair and energy production. So your body can actually start to upregulate itself in terms of energy, because it can go back and repair all the things which are damaged in the first place. You've got more energy. And food noise disappeared, right? Because all the things in which we spoke about, I just want to go back to this. Oh no, where are we? All the things here which we spoke about due to the nervous system being in a sympathetic state, we actually shifted because we changed the state. So she wasn't hungry all the time. She stopped thinking about food, and that's because the body stopped sending the false signals. And what's this last one? Natural choices without willpower, and this is great. This is a prime example of your state depending and making everything happen. So when she was at the spa, so she went to the spa that weekend after our conversation, there was all of this shit food there, and she didn't want it. She just didn't want it. And the old version of her would have always eaten all of that. And it's not because she was more disciplined. The state had shifted. So the limbic pull, I can't even remember what I've written here, was no longer there. There we go. This didn't require discipline. This is why I hate the word discipline. This is why I hate willpower, because you're operating out of the wrong state. Okay? When you change your state, fantastic things happen. Doing the right things for you changes. The whole thing changes. So what we have to do is make the first decision to change our state. And we're always so obsessed with, you know, our diet. We're always obsessed with the specifics. We're obsessed with, you know, what we eat, how we eat, our training practice. It's bullshit. What we actually need to be focused on is our state. Because going back to this example here for this amazing client of mine, once we change the state, doing the right behaviors is easy because you just expected it of ourselves. And one thing which I want you to think about when it comes to state is that one decision changes the next 10. So when you're making a decision to change your state, you're not making 100 decisions a day. You're making one decision, and then your state is making the next 99 for you. So one aligned choice in a low state creates a micro shift. That micro shift makes the next choice easier, and the state elevates through the chain, and the cascade is automatic. So a really good example of this is, and this is in a low state. So let's say you're feeling guilty for the day, and you're feeling ashamed because you went out on the weekend and you ate a load of crap food. You get to Monday and you're like, I'm gonna have to really punish myself this week. I'm gonna have to make sure that I do a silly amount of steps, lower my calories, etc., etc. And you make that choice, and it seems aligned to you. You know, it seems to be what the thing in which you need it to do. But then that comes out of the wrong place, which makes the decision out of the wrong place easier, and then easier, and then easier. And then before you know it, you get to Wednesday, you're binging because you've starved yourself from Monday to Wednesday. You've done so much cardio, your body's in a heightened state of stress. You break it, and then we go back into the cycle. When we make one out of a really good space, we can start to really make permanent change. So you can do things in a downward way. So let's say you're in a low state, you're feeling not great, you've had a bad weekend, you're feeling a little bit meh. You can make the decision which most people go and do, and that's they check the scale. So when they're not feeling good, what do they go and do? They go and weigh themselves. So like, this is the worst thing ever. You know, so they check the scale and they're not feeling good. The scale gives them a result in which they're not happy with, because it never does. It triggers the limbic system, which makes your prefrontal cortex go online. So that part of your brain that makes conscious decisions that are good for you, and your food decisions come from fear. The guilt adds more cortisol to your system, the loop tightens, and you keep doing these repeatedly self-destructive habits. However, let's say you're in a bad state, right? You're going to get this out of your way. And you're like, how can I turn this? How can I make myself feel good and do something good? And that one small micro action might be that you get yourself a glass of water. You know, you go and get yourself a glass of water. You're like, this is a constructive action for me to do. And your nervous system calms down as a byproduct of that. And your next decision comes from a slightly higher state. So at this point, you've gone from feeling guilty and shame to being like neutral, because you're like, oh, at least I've had some water. And then when you're neutral, it makes it easier to do the next behavior, which is good for you. The gap between low and good narrows, and momentum becomes self-sustaining. Momentum is one of the most powerful things in the universe, and that's because momentum comes from state. And we have to change the state in order to change behavior. So this is just a full cycle, again, from another conversation which I had. And the emotional state behind the action is what drives the subconscious actions. If you're restricting from shame, that is low energy, and that energy flows downstream to the next thing you do. The guilt behind the binge leads to even more restriction, because the brain goes, I was undisciplined, and the cycle feeds itself. The action is never the problem. It is the emotion behind it that cultivates the next one. And a few examples of this, like low state. So shame and fear seem to govern everyone. Shame in particular, shame and guilt. What happens in that state is your stress hormones become elevated. When you're restricting from punishment, so you're going, I need to eat less because I am fat and horrible, the action comes to the wrong energy. When you binge and that collapses, the pendulum swings back and comes back down here. And more guilt because of these things just makes the state drop further. And it's not that the action is the problem, it's the state that drives the action that is. So it's not even cardio that's the problem. It's the fact that you're punishing yourself with it. It's the fact that you're doing it because you're guilty. If you're doing cardio because you're like two people, you get someone that goes out on a Saturday to run because they love running. They fucking love it. They go out, they run for 2 hours, they feel so good. And then you get somebody that goes out for a run on a Sunday morning for 2 hours because they ate a load of crap food the night before and they feel guilty. One has a significantly better knock-on effect than the other, I can guarantee that. And no amount of trying harder fixes a state problem. So you can't try harder out of a bad state. It just doesn't work like that. Okay? So here's how to shift your state before you act. And this is a framework which I teach every single person that I work with, all the people which you're seeing, like this girl as an example, right here. This is the state in which we got to work with her. And this isn't mindset tips. This is simply just mechanics. This is how you can alter your brain to get the things which you want. So the first thing is recognize the state before the action. You know, you have to be aware of which state you're in to understand the action in which you're taking and why you're doing it. So before you're doing anything, just pause and ask yourself, what state am I in? You know, am I stressed? Am I feeling guilty? Am I feeling shameful? When you're in these states, this is your signal to pause and not do anything more. Because acting from these states always make it worse. So always ask yourself how I'm feeling. You know, and emotions aren't something to be ignored. They're something to pay close attention to, because they're going to derive everything that goes on in your life. Emotion, energy, emotion. We're talking about energy here. Where that good energy goes, you're going to get more good stuff. Where that low energy goes, you're going to start attracting more bad stuff. Use physiology to shift physiology. So Movement, right? If you're feeling stressed, you're feeling guilty, you're feeling shame, move, breathe, get some cold exposure on yourself. You can go do an ice bath, it's a good way of doing it, but most people don't have access to it. But sunlight, again, like all of these amazing things right here, these inputs, they bypass the prefrontal cortex entirely, and they directly downregulate that HP axis. So that part in which all the stress is originating from, it's actually going straight to this part of the brain and down regulating it. So this is why when you feel stressed and you go for a walk, you feel so much better. When you focus on your breathing, you feel more relaxed. When you get in an ice bath or you get some sunlight, you feel less of the dominant low state emotion which you were feeling before that thing. And they're amazing tools to help you do it. And make step 3, which is a really, really good one as well, is make the smallest aligned decision. So it doesn't have to be a perfect workout, doesn't have to be a perfect meal, but just make one decision that is true to the version of you which you're becoming. And your nervous system responds to evidence of safety, and then you can start stacking evidence from there. So we often think, like, when we're in a bad state, again, sometimes you're not going to have the choice to regulate yourself or do any of the other tips. So you're just going to have to ask yourself, what's something small that I can do right now that is still constructive? You know, we're not going, one small aligned action is going to be me punishing myself on the treadmill. It's like, no, go for a gentle walk outside. You understand that that's not punishing yourself. You understand that movement is good for you. Very, very small decision that aligns you with that higher version of yourself. And moving on to that higher version of yourself, the most powerful behavior which I get every single person that I work with to do is to act on the future self, not the current feeling. So ask yourself, what would the version of me who already has this result do right now? Not from discipline, from identity. So there's a version of you out there that I want you to think about that has lost 40 pounds of fat, has an amazing body, has an amazing relationship, has an amazing career, has an amazing business. In this example, we're obviously talking about the body. But ask yourself, like, what that version of you is doing. Because one thing for certain is you can't trust the current version of you. The current version of you has got you exactly where you are right now, which is what you don't like. So ask yourself, what would they do? And then act from it. And that question, what that does is it bypasses the limbic threat response entirely, because you have to activate that prefrontal cortex to ask yourself, what would that version of me do? So what you're doing is basically switching from being unconscious and emotional to hearing and recognizing the emotion and deciding to act from a better space from that. And it's not about not listening to emotion. It's just about not trusting it and not trusting what the emotion wants to do. Because when you're stressed, you likely want to eat. When you're angry, you don't want to go to the gym. When you're frustrated, you don't want to move, you know? And can you trust that? Does that serve you? Absolutely not. So you have to go, what does serve me right now, and ask that ideal future self. Okay, and that's some ways in which you can shift the state you're in. And that's how you get permanent, long-lasting change, because over time your shift changes, your state changes to act on a more permanent basis, and it gets easier to act from a safer and healthier spot. So the reframe that I want you to think about is to stop asking yourself how I get more discipline and willpower, and start asking yourself, how can I operate in the state in which serves me more, you know? And because discipline is just what consistent aligned action looks like from the outside, it was never the starting point. You know, people that are disciplined seem to like, you're like, that person's got discipline. I need to do those things. It's like, no, that person's not disciplined. That's just aligned with who they are. It's just aligned with their state. Okay? The starting point is always the state. It's not the discipline. It's not the behaviors. It's not the action. It's just that state in which you're in. And stepping into that future version of you right now in this immediate moment is how you cultivate that into your reality. Okay? So, key takeaways. Willpower lives in the prefrontal cortex. Stress suppresses that, so willpower is least available when you need it, because you still sometimes do need that willpower in those small little micro moments, but you shouldn't be running off it all the time. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, spikes ghrelin, spikes your hunger hormone, to make it simple, impairs what hormone makes you full, which is your leptin, and slows down your metabolism. So it's not a mindset problem, it's a physiological one. The law of vibration, the same action taken from shame produces a different physiological response than the same action taken from love or acceptance. So how you feel when you're doing something is more important than what you're doing. And the first decision principle is one which should govern your entire life. So when you're feeling a certain sort of way, make one aligned choice in a low state, which shifts your neurochemistry and makes the next decision easier, and then start stacking them from there. And the most important takeaway from this, state first. Understand what place you're in, understand the emotional feeling in which you're in and where you're operating from. that will flood downstream into that identity, so that version of you that operates in that state, and then action comes as a byproduct. So the behavior in which you do, you don't need to think about. You just need to think about the state. When you feel good, you do good. When you feel shit, you do shit. Very simple case. Stop making yourself feel shit all the time. Stop being addicted to feeling shit. Let's shift that state. Let's get more optimistic. Let's feel fucking good. Let's step into the ideal version of us, and then we'll stop the downstream negative side effects which are coming from you feeling shit. Okay? That's how we're going to do that. That's how you're going to shift your state to get yourself into your dream body. All of the things in which I've mentioned in this video are all the things which I directly work on with people that decide to work with me through the shift. As you see, the principles in which we dive into are incredibly different to the ones in which you typically see for every other single fitness coach. And I'm not a traditional fitness coach. What I actually do is I break the subconscious beliefs holding you back from attaining the body of your dreams. Those subconscious mental blocks are the states in which you keep finding yourself in because you are stuck. We need to remove those things which are keeping you stuck to make the behaviors in which you want to exhibit natural. When they become natural, it's easy to attain that dream body. It's easy to maintain it because you're simply aligned with it. Align yourself, the result comes as a dream body naturally. It will feel effortless. And if you want my help in guiding you through that, like hundreds of people have done already, fill in the application link in the top link in the description, and I'll reach back out to you. Much love. Enjoy yourself. Hopefully you found this insightful, and have a good rest of your day.